Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emily, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We didn't see many people paving their own ways like we decided to, so we created this podcast to talk to others who were brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we learn from them, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Coast Podcast. My name's Emily Given, and I own a virtual assistant agency based in Linwood, Washington.
And I am Whitney Popa. I own a communications consultancy right down the road in Edmonds. I know this very well now because I have been dropping Emily off at her house and then just driving straight. And today we are very excited to have Amber Parucha, who is one of the co-founders and chief marketing officer of Yerbana, which is this fabulous, amazing naturally carbonated tea drink. She's going to tell us all about it. But it's made with yerba mate and it's delicious. I especially like the peach flavor. And we were really excited to bring her on because I don't know if Emily does, but I have no idea how anyone would even be like, I want to invent a drink basically. And then I want to like figure out how to put it into the world. So we're really excited to hear Amber's story. And she's local to Seattle as well and doing some super cool stuff. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Really, really appreciate it. Enjoy the time. It's always nice just to be able to spread the word about the yerb and get people a little bit more excited about health.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is it? Is it Yerbana? Is that how you say it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell us about Yerbana.
So Yerbana is a craft brewed sparkling yerba mate. Yerba mate is a herb that grows indigenously in South America, and it's been a very celebrated part of South American culture for thousands and thousands of years. And we were first introduced to yerba mate after our two main co-founders, Wes and James, started this out of UW actually in an entrepreneurship class. And Wes went on a backpacking trip with his family all throughout South America and was really introduced to the culture and the spirit of mate and just this idea of people coming together to share a moment and enjoy a drink where, you know, there's no phones, there's no distractions. People sit down, they put the mate in their gourd, and you're there. You're in that present moment. You're passing the mate around, and it's really meant to be like symbolism for sharing. And so bringing that back to America, what all the mate products that we saw on the market didn't really uphold the true integrity of the plant medicine. A lot of the mate that we see in the supermarkets is actually like a yerba mate extract. It has added caffeine. It has a bunch of added sugar. And it really fancies itself a lot more as like an energy drink than tea. And so we created Yerbana out of really just wanting to uphold yerba mate. So we don't use any extracts or preservatives. We use real steeped tea. And then we sweeten with just a little bit of agave. So it only has 4 grams of sugar. And then we carbonate it. So it actually goes through the same process as a craft beer. So that's kind of really what makes it different from other products on the market. And yeah, just trying to give people like a nice, healthy alternative.
That reminds me of kava.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kava is an adaptogenic herb that helps kind of like realign the endocrine system. And so, yeah, yerba mate is not actually a tea. It's an herb, but it steeps like a tea. So it is kind of similar in that sense.
But kava tastes terrible. I
Yeah, kava's intense. Mate itself is actually really bitter as well. It does have a very earthy taste, which is why we do sweeten with that little bit of agave just to kind of offset that very like earthy flavor profile.
So, can you tell us some of the health benefits of latte?
Absolutely.
And are there health benefits? I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, yerba mate itself is naturally caffeinated. It has about 80 milligrams of naturally reoccurring caffeine in it, which is about half of a cup of coffee. Your standard cup of coffee usually has between like 120 to like 150 milligrams. But the cool thing about mate is that it also has 24 vitamins and minerals in it, which is the profiles to sustain life, and 15 amino acids, and these components called theophylline and theobromine. Theophylline um, helps stimulation without giving you that like jittery feeling, and theobromine is the compound found in chocolate that kind of gives you that like euphoric sense. So with those compounds, it really gives you kind of like all the building blocks you need to sustain life. So it is like a very, very healthy plant medicine.
That's really interesting. I had the mint one at Danica's last event, and it was so good. I really like
Cool.
it.
Oh, that's awesome to hear.
What's your role with Yerbana and how did you get involved?
Yeah. So when James and Wes first thought up this idea, it was a completely different, really product. It was called CO2 Brew. They had it in glass bottles. It was, again, it was just a concept born out of their entrepreneurship class at UW. And they were doing that route for a couple years. And then they brought on Alex, who was the main inspiration behind the rebrand and really giving this beverage a brand and like an idea and more of an ideology to stand behind. Kind of turning what just is like a yerba mate beverage into like, no, we want to be a wellness company. We want to be a pillar for balance, health, and community, and really helping people attain and like want to, just get out there and enjoy life and be a little bit healthier. And so Alex helped them completely rebrand into Yerbana. And then the one piece that was kind of missing and where I fit in is the marketing and events. So I am the chief marketing officer. So I do like digital, the in-person marketing events, and then for right now run our social media. But hopefully we will find someone really stoked to help me with that soon. Social media is hard,
Yeah.
but necessary.
Yeah. And that's something that my business I'm leaning out of. And I talked to so many people last night actually about there was another holiday event that we were all at, and they were so many people are like, yeah, I'm not doing social media management as part of my business anymore, which is hilarious. So and also kind of validating for me, although it puts you in a difficult position. I do think there's a lot of great Z's out there, who are really savvy with Canva and have all these crazy hashtag strategies. And I am more than happy to give them that business instead of doing it myself at this point. I think we're all kind of burnt out.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Especially like I think we kind of ride on that like zillennial. Like we didn't get introduced to social media. I didn't get Instagram until I was like a freshman in college, and so like we grew up with the internet, but the internet looked a lot different for us back then. And I do still think that we have like more of a capacity for in-person connection, and it's something that we really strive for and yearn for maybe a lot more. And so like fully trying to like get that connection through the digital world is something that I really struggle with. And also just the consistency of like having to post on TikTok every single day, like sometimes multiple times a day, and like the engagement is something that is really like mentally draining for me. But I'm sure that there is someone, who just like absolutely thrives in that space and like really loves it. And if you're good at it and you love it, like then heck yeah, like capitalize off that. So like I'm excited to find that person in the future because it's not me.
If you have a job description by the time this launches, then we can include that in the show notes too, because I know that there's a lot of me's out there 10 years ago, who are eager and passionate to do it, and we need them. So young ones,
Bless
come to
up.
us. I want to talk to you though about your in-person events, because I did notice that you do, like, you sponsor like some yoga outings, and I'm sure you do other stuff too. I think you some sound baths and meditation things. Was that part of your like ideation of like, okay, we're going to make sure that we're doing, do you have a goal like X amount of events, or just as they feel right? I know that it's a lot of work to do those on-site things. Even if you're just hauling coolers, it's still a lot to coordinate.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of our core brand values is sanctioned in community. And I know that was one of the big reasons that Wes wanted to evolve Yerbana as well. Wes is our other co-founder. James and Wes are the two original founders that founded this out of UW. And Wes is just such a social person. Like he really cares about inclusivity. Like he wants people to get involved. So events were really kind of at the forefront of things that he wanted to accomplish with Yerbana, but just also trying to do sales and partnerships. Like he just didn't necessarily have the bandwidth to do it. And that's kind of events are like my forte. It's something that I just absolutely love doing them. It's something that I did with my past jobs. And so when I stepped into this role, it was most certainly on like the forefront of my brain of like, okay, well, let's find reasons to get people together, but let's also do it in a way that's meaningful, because there's a lot of ways that we can all get together. You can meet people at a bar, you can like go to a concert, but that doesn't necessarily always spark intelligent conversation, or it doesn't really give you the chance to connect with someone on a deeper level. And that's what we want Yerbana events to be about. We want people of all backgrounds, of all different walks of life, to be able to show up and be celebrated and to feel like they are walking away with a sense of wholesomeness, that they learned something, or that they were able to grow or make a new friend. And so that's kind of what I don't have like an X number of events that I want to do, but I want to make sure the quality of every single event that we throw upholds those pillars. And so when we thought about, okay, well, what's a great way that we can get people together outside, because, COVID times, you had to get really creative and like how we were doing events. And that's when we came up with the idea to do yoga in the park. And that was kind of like my little brain baby from last summer of teaming up with Bala Yoga, which is a wonderful studio. They have 3 locations in Fremont, Sammamish, and Kirkland. And we teamed up with them to be able to host free outdoor yoga every single Thursday at Gasworks Park. And then I think that became like a real beacon for people, because it was so low barrier. You didn't have to sign up. You didn't have to pay money. You didn't have to make a reservation that you didn't know if you'd be able to uphold. You just got to show up and flow. And we tried to be very fluid. We had different teachers come every single week. We tried to make it very all levels welcome. Like if you were a beginner, there was a place for you. If you were advanced, there was modifications for you. So we just wanted everyone to feel very welcomed in that space. And yoga became like very quickly, we're like, okay, like this is our people, like the people that are, caring about reading the nutrition facts on the back of a can, the people that understand the positive impacts of balanced health and community. A lot of it's like the yoga community. So we've really we were able to find our people with that. It helped us nail in like who our target demographic is and helped us understand our audience a bit better. And it also was kind of a helpful social enterprise that we were able to give back to the people, because we're a super lean company. There's only 4 of us like trying to make this thing happen right now. Like, and beverage is super hard. It's a super hard game to get into. And so when you're just 4 people, you don't or, don't really have enough money to even pay yourselves. Like we don't have the advantage to, do 1% for the planet right now, which like I'm a huge proponent for people that, give back part of their proceeds to a charitable cause, like 1% for the planet, neutral, like carbon offset kind of stuff. We're not in a place where we can do that yet. But where we are in a place is that we're able to do some of these free community events and kind of use that as our way to give back to the community, because I think that is so, so important for like all businesses to do in some capacity, is like find a way to put your money where your mouth is and like give back to the people that are like supporting you and helping, make the world go round. Sorry, that was super long-winded, but like, yeah, it's important for us, and we want to keep continuing to do that through yoga and, other events too. Like, some of them are going to be like a little bit more like Danica's event where, maybe it's like for, you're paying a little bit of money, but you're really going to be able to like walk away with a new skill, or, learn how to do a new thing, or like attend a retreat where you get to really do that shadow work and that inner work. And so we want to really be like a pillar for that in the community.
Amber, I want you to know that this is a safe place for long-winded.
Okay, cool. Sometimes I go on like just super, super long rants and I'm like, okay, like you got to be concise with your thought process sometimes, Amber, but that's just something that I work through on like my personal day-to-day as well.
What did I have? I was going to ask you, have you gone down the investing route at all? Just because what comes to mind when you're like, beverage is hard game to get into, I was like, oh, I've seen a lot of Shark Tank episodes where someone's trying to get a beverage off the ground. And so that's just where my mind went.
Yeah, we are currently shopping around. We are now in a place where we have the numbers to help position us in a way that we're able to take a large investment. We weren't there in the past. Like we just, our sales numbers just quite weren't up to scuff. And now I think that we're looking really good going into next year. And that it's going to be it's going to be a really key part of our expansion and our growth, and also just, security of being able, like, my boyfriend and I living out of our van right now. So like, this is our setup. This is my pups here too. Like we're all really, really scrappy with how we're doing this. Like all of us are living out of our vans, doing this just to keep the dream alive. And so, yeah, hopefully, I think the cool thing about the way that we're doing it is that we get to do it the way that we want to. We don't have to answer to somebody. We don't have to cut corners. We don't have to do things just to make an investor happy. We've got to do this all from our hearts and from our souls. But I think moving forward, we are looking for the right investor,
We're talking about becoming a group of female angel investors in Seattle, like coming up with a group of people who can invest in things like what you're doing. Like you are, we're not there yet, but it's definitely a goal. And, depending on what kind of contributions you're looking for, I'd love to get a group together where we can support businesses like yours and with missions, of wellness and saving the planet.
Totally.
And what I love about it too, I love that what you first said about like the sharing of it all together. Like I imagine getting people together in their backyards and all just like sharing, no, not the same can necessarily right now, but like sharing Yerbana and like being together in that moment and creating ceremony around it, like he experienced in South America with the, mate there. I think that's super cool. So I'm excited about what you're doing and your growth. And I'm sorry I cut you off. I'm also long-winded.
Oh, no worries. We're definitely on the same wavelength with this all right now. And I love, love, love your idea of finding a like-minded group of female angel investors, because there's all different types of groups up there. But, I really do believe that your vibe attracts your tribe. And if like you're looking to support a business that understands like human, social, and physical capital on a sustainable level, you're much more likely to succeed in this space in the long term, I think. And so it's about, yeah, finding the right people who understand your values on like a really core level. And I think that's a really beautiful thing that you're aiming to do with this group. And I think that we've brought up Danica a few times. She's the owner of Green Door Sound Bath. Like, I really, really look up to Danica as like a role model, and just like a really badass female entrepreneur that has like really opened up the space for all of us to show up in our most authentic way and get to know one another and celebrate each other and support each other financially, physically, spiritually. We need more of that, especially right now. It's pretty crucial, actually. So I'm all for it. Love it.
We were just talking last night, Emily and I were, about the container that she's created. And Danica was on our third episode, I think, of our podcast. And so we talked a little bit about her business. I'd love to do a follow-up with her about these events that she's doing so people can become more aware of them. But we were talking about how the container she's created for us has been so instrumental. And even for me personally, like, just to see other women out there just like moving towards their dreams has been so powerful in like validating and affirming like you're making the right moves and you have people who get it, who you can talk to and ask questions and just be in the same space with. And I've never felt comfortable at a quote unquote networking event. So it's been just totally transformative for me. And obviously we get to connect to people like you doing awesome things as well. So I was surprised at how much I liked the yerba mate, to be honest, because I was like, oh, I don't know like what I'm getting into. And I love to try a different, like when I'm at the store, I'm like gonna grab this drink as like my treat, like a new kombucha. And you never know what you're going to get. So I was really excited to try you. And every time I would go to one of those, I'm like, all right, I know I like Yerbana. So here I am with my peach.
Cool. That's so great to hear. Yeah, and I think that's something that really makes us different from the rest. I know when James and Wes first got into it, we did try to work with a more traditional co-packer who were like, no, like steeping real tea is way too challenging. It's like way too time intensive. The best way is to do it with extracts and then, cane sugar or even honey. But we went in a completely different route of like, okay, just because the market suggests that people enjoy more sugar doesn't mean that we're doing any sort of service to them by just pumping our beverage full of sugar like everyone else, because like that, it to us is like not a way to sustain health for the long term. And if you're really trying to position yourself as a company that cares about people's health, why would you pump your product full of 28 grams of sugar just so it like tastes okay and because like the market says people like sugar? And so
Yeah. Like you're trying to disrupt the market, right?
exactly. And I feel like that's what a lot of women are trying to do with their businesses is they're trying to disrupt the market. Like, no, like this is something that we've put time into. This is something that we've put love into. This isn't just fast fashion or fast food or fast beverage. Like this is something that we've cultivated with intention and with love. And that to me is way more like, I don't know, I'm way more down to vote with my dollar and support that kind of business than I would for just, something easy or like whatever the newest fad is, which, there's one like every other week. So
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about that comment too is like I can imagine that most of the beverages out there are loaded with sugar. So obviously the numbers would show, and sugar is addicting. Like the
so
numbers would
addicting.
show that the market likes sugar. So
Yeah.
that's just like funny because it's like, those self-confirming biases or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's no joke that we have been taught a food pyramid and standards of health that aren't necessarily the most accurate. The food pyramid that was structured by, Rockefeller and Carnegie back in the 1950s that had grains as your foundational source and sugars and fats as just like, 28 grams of this, like at the top of your food pyramid. We're learning now that that was just, completely incorrect, and that we are having to unlearn a lot of these foundational things that have been instilled in us for a very long time of like what it actually means to be healthy. And like a lot of these healthy beverages, you turn around and you read the nutrition facts and you're like, oh, I can't pronounce half of these ingredients. Like this is supposed to be a healthy organic beverage and there's like still 20 grams of sugar in this. Like, where is the disconnect here? And so we want to be able to, our can is really simple, like, but when you turn it around, you can pronounce everything that's on our ingredients list. And I think that it's really important for us to be super transparent about everything that we're doing, like whether it's our, ingredients, whether it's our events, just putting your best foot forward. I think transparency in the market is so important, and just showing people your process of not just like, oh, it's all just like my Instagram highlights and like look how fun it is to like run your own small business, and like look how easy it is to make healthy beverages. Like, no, it's like it's super hard work, and like sometimes it sucks, and like sometimes you're like in your van like, oh shit, like I wish I was in an actual apartment right now, or like I wish we had maybe found a way to make this easier. But like it's not supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be worth it. And yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of us that are stepping into this entrepreneurial space are learning that, the hard way is like it's not going to be easy, it's not always going to be pretty, to stand up for what you believe in, but at the end of the day it's worth it. And I think that's a really good cadence to move forward with.
So I want to know, what did you do before you did this?
So before Yerbana, I worked as a regional coordinator for an international volunteer organization called Give Volunteers, which is, they will always just have the most special place in my heart. I worked for Give for about 4 years, like started with them as a volunteer in college as like basically part of like a Peace Corps prep program. I really wanted to do the Peace Corps when I was in college, and I found out about this amazing opportunity to go to Thailand and work on sustainable projects like permaculture and wildlife conservation, and all of it was community run. So it wasn't just like, the white savior complex of a bunch of colonization coming in and like thinking that they know what's best for people. It was actually like taking the time to work with community members and learn about their goals, learn about what they want to do to succeed for their communities, and then us acting as the hand to bring their dreams to life. So before I was with Yerbana, I worked with Give, and that was basically consumed my whole life. I worked in Southeast Asia and Nepal every summer and winter for like 4 years. But then COVID happened. And unfortunately, being a small business and international travel during the pandemic, we were basically the first on the chopping block. And so everything that we'd kind of like worked for came to like a pretty dead stop for, a pretty long time. But, again, the power of the freaking internet, like Give got on TikTok and like rose from the ashes of like not being able to run any programs to going viral on TikTok. And then like this past summer, they were able to open up a new program in Hawaii, which was one of the few places that we were able to still travel. And they ran sold out trips all summer, and like we're able to like rise like the phoenix, which is like awesome. Like if you guys are ever looking, or like have a high school or college student that are ever looking to travel the world in a sustainable way, Give Volunteers should be one of the first places that you check out, because I mean, they're doing it right. They're really doing it right. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love that you made the distinction too of like the white savior complex around it and how it's structured. Yeah.
Totally. Because, there's there's always intention versus impact, right? Like you can go into a place with like the absolute best intention and like wanting to do all this good for people and like wanting to like make a real difference. But if you don't take the time to actually learn about the people that you're working with, take time to know who the community leaders are, take time to learn what the actual goals are rather than like instituting your own beliefs and like what you think is best, that just doesn't work. That's like a top down approach, and like all of these projects need to be a bottom up approach in order for them to be sustainable. Because if you go and build something for a community and they don't need it or they don't know how to fix it if it breaks, then it's just wasted resources at that point. So that's a very key distinction when you're talking about like development in other countries, which again, that's like a whole nother rant.
Yeah. I would love for them, speaking of rants, I would love them to bring that mentality to the homelessness
Yeah.
and opioid crisis in Seattle, because it's,
Oh yeah.
in my mind, very like root causes versus let's just throw some housing at them. I don't think that's the solve either. So that's a whole
Yeah.
other bar conversation or yerba
Totally.
conversation.
Right. That's something to get together and talk about in a mate circle, really carve out
Yes.
some intentional
Yes.
space and share those ideas. Cause yeah, we look at a lot of these issues and they're so systemic, right? There's just um, so many different pressure points that need to change in order for us to even move the needle forward a little bit. But we're in a place where we're not empowering people. We're not trusting people that they know how to make good decisions for themselves. And so what we end up with is just this system of dependency and this system of lack of trust. And it's kind of that age old saying of like, give a man a fish or teach a man to fish. And like, I don't think that we've created systems where we're teaching people how to fish. That's just my take on it. There's ways to mitigate, ways to help. We have to do it in small groups rather than just like these huge overarching systems that like are pretty bureaucratic and maybe don't even understand
Yeah.
like what they're doing in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm even thinking about that with like my toddlers. I'm like, let me teach you how to do this. Like I help to manage a co-working space, and there's a lot of like how how long and hard do we hold their hands through a process? Like adults are just grown children, and if they can get their hand held, often they're like, okay. But also, like you said, my whole life growing up, I never washed my own car because my dad did it. And when I told him, like, hey, when I was out of town once, like, oh, I thought it would be really nice if I washed the car for you. And he went on this whole rant of like his anal retentiveness of, oh, no, if you don't dry it correctly, it'll get water spots and then those will stain the paint, and maybe just wait until you get home. And that didn't serve me right. I mean, there's
Yeah,
brown bear for that now, but still, like, I'm not served by not knowing how to wash my own car, in the whole like big metaphor of it all.
totally. Yeah. And like that just applies to so many different things. And it really is like sometimes we need to be able to go through the trial and failure to learn how to do
Absolutely.
something correctly rather than just having it done right the first time and keeping that perfectionist mindset of like, oh well, it won't be done right, so don't do it at all. Let's work from that iterative scale and maybe mess up a few times but actually learn how to do the process.
Hmm. I used to
Yeah.
say my biggest fear was failure, and now I say my biggest fear is failing without learning something.
That hit, girl. That hit.
Yeah, I like that. Where is Yerbana now? Like, where are you selling?
Yerbana is currently we're expanding, which is great. You can find us in retail at PCC, at QFC in the Puget Sound region, as well as like Ken's Market, Market Time, Metropolitan Market. Pretty much any of your like natural local food stores or co-ops. And then our biggest expansion yet is that we just moved down into San Francisco. That's actually where the team and I just were. We just got back. Thank you. Thank you. We just got back a couple days ago, and Wes moved down to California permanently to open up distribution in the central and northern coast. And yeah, we launched like over 100 accounts in the past 2 weeks. So it's been like,
what? That's
so
exciting.
crazy.
Congrats. That's
amazing.
Huge. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. And then we also just got the call, I think like yesterday, Wes got the call that Facebook is coming back. And that was one of our first accounts, is that we were on tap at Facebook and WeWork, and Facebook's coming back. And so we're going to be there now too. So if you work at Facebook, expect to see some Yerbana there.
Do you want to be on tap at Workhorse in Edmonds? Because we have 4 kegerators.
Yes. Oh
Seriously,
my gosh.
though.
Cool.
Let's chat about it.
Let's chat about it for sure. I would really love for you ladies to meet the rest of our team too at some point. Maybe we can all get together if there's another one of another networking events. Like, I'd really love for you to meet James, Wes, and Alex, because it really feels like, you know, the 4 of us we're like the core, you know, and like we're bringing on our friends Tanner and Brennan, who are going to be like our tech team, like data analysis and like our website SEO stuff. But yeah, we are so blessed to have such a awesome team, and I feel really, really confident with how we'd be able to, you know, expand into further stuff. And so yeah, maybe if we're able to come drop off a keg at Workforce, you said, or
Workhorse,
yeah,
we do Sankey kegs, pony kegs.
Cool. Yeah, we've got them, so that would be awesome.
And I am like adamant about supporting local and letting our members know what we have and hosting tastings. So yeah,
cool.
It's completely aligned.
You're speaking our language, girl. We're all about that. We just talked about how we need to start doing some more tastings and just keeping our finger on the pulse, because when you try Yerbana, you really like it. It's just about getting it out there and allowing people to try it if they're into it, you know.
And that's like I feel for you, because that's a pretty high barrier to entry, you know, like it requires a lot of legwork and grassroots and being on the ground, and COVID really like messed with that, I'm sure. But you're doing great, and we're here to support you too.
We appreciate that. Yeah, I think, you know, and that's kind of my advice for others as well, is like any rejection is redirection. And I know James and Wes and Alex had to do some major rethinking once COVID hit, because we weren't in PCC at the beginning of 2020. We weren't in Met Market. Like, we pretty much went full retail once COVID started, and we really had to pivot out of like doing this you know, just being at Facebook and WeWork and like wanting to do events, to like, okay, well now we have to like rethink this and get ourselves into the space where people can see us at this time, because, you know, there was just no other way for people to be able to try our product unless it was in the stores. And like, you know, the amount of times that like James and Wes have been back and forth talking to these, you know, monolithic like grocery store chains and just constantly getting doors shut in their face, and like never ever giving up, because like, you know, you're going to knock on 20 doors and like maybe like one will open for you. And it's just about having that persistence and that resilience to be like, no, you believe in this, this is going to work. And like, we're going to crawl through a window. If you keep shutting the doors on us, like we're going to find a way to do it. And it's just about the sheer grit at that point of like, how much do you really want it?
That's the word I was going to use too. I love the grit. And I think that's like so applicable to everybody right now who's out there doing their own thing and trying to disrupt, or even, you know, trying to work to have the confidence to leave a thing that isn't serving them anymore. It's all about grit and pushing and trying something new, even if you don't know what you want to do yet. You know, it's persevering through like, okay, I'm going to make a list of not this. And then at some point I will figure out like the right next move, and I'm just going to keep trying and until I get what I want. But I also think people need to work hard on figuring out what they want.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Whitney here. Emily is traveling with her family on the East Coast, so she wasn't able to join me for this. You probably noticed Amber's audio was a little wild at places. Amber is actively living the van life, as you heard. And if the worst part of living the van life is that sometimes you get your Wi-Fi cut off and you have some crazy audio for podcast interviews, then that's a pretty good life. So we don't have the answers to her rapid fire questions on this episode. We might have to invite her back and do a redo when she can maybe plug into a better connection. But for now, we are so thrilled that we got to talk to her. We hope that you really enjoy her story and that you'll go out and find Yerbana. So thank you again, Amber, and we'll talk to you probably in a couple weeks. This episode's music was provided by Sloan Best.
And editing provided by Kayla Shu.